we're at 11 o'clock, so we might make a start, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Little Lunch number 6, which was, you know, in the way the world works, actually Little Lunch number 5, because we had to cancel yesterday's meeting. So my name's Norm Horton, and with Sarah Moynihan here, we're the coordinators at Feral Arts and running the Arts Front project. We're hosting the meeting, the lunch today, and so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We're joining you from Cubby Cubby Lands on the Sunshine Coast region, and it's a real privilege for us to be able to live and work here on Cubby Cubby Lands. There's a chat window for you guys to introduce yourselves, say hi, say whose country you're on today, and also to post any questions or ideas as you're coming forward. We're doing a lot of recording for this today. We've got the live recording onto YouTube as well as the Zoom call, so we'll get a good record of what's happening. Susan, you may be able to see from Auslan, is here doing signing for people who need that sort of support, and there's also captioning from the captioning folk. And there's a couple of quick announcements we want to make just to kind of bring people up to date on a couple of things before we kind of get into today's session, which would be really cool with Johnny Willsteed and Luke Peacock. So firstly, apologies for the Australia Council session that we had planned for yesterday, but with the delay in the announcement of the 4-year funding, we thought it was the only thing we could really do was to put that back. So we don't know when the 4-year funding is coming out yet. That's kind of a mystery to everyone, but I can confirm that Frank Panucci is joining us again on Friday, which is great. So he can talk to us about whatever's public information at that stage, as well as they've announced yesterday this new resilience package. So they've kind of crunched together a lot of the other bits and pieces that council does, and they've got a new program. So it doesn't go live on their website until Friday. So that's the same day that Frank's kind of coming on to talk to us. So he can take us through all the bits and pieces for there. But if you guys want to, in the meantime, you can go onto that page for the lunch for Friday and post any questions that you might have or any thoughts or in any other kind of provocations or stuff that you want to put forward for that conversation on Friday. So then we've got a bit of an agenda of things that we work through there. But obviously during the conversation as well, people can just add those things at the same time. We also want to kind of let you guys know that there's a really cool captioners group that's developed through the project. So people who are helping doing the live captioning. If you've got on the Zoom window, you should be able to enable captions and you can see the feed of the captions coming through. And also that gets captured to the videos, so going out, so making the accessibility better. And these guys are paraphrasing, not trying to write exactly what we're saying. So it's not an exact record, but so it's a really cool thing. And if other people are doing other Zoom meetings and they need that kind of support for their Zoom and want either Auslan supporting the signing or the captioning group, we can work it out so you can connect directly with those guys in the end to help out with that stuff too. Got an amazing response to the EOIs, the artist EOIs. So they're growing and there's some fantastic stuff in there. It's more artists than we have lunches. So what we've decided to do is we're going to have a little drinks online on Friday afternoon. So be 6 p.m. Sydney time, 5 p.m. Brisbane time, and we'll work out the other kind of time differences and stuff. But essentially that's a chance for a 6-pack of artists to come and perform, and we're negotiating with a couple of people. There's someone to be an MC and sort of take us through, introduce the artists and say hi, and so just a way to kind of wind out the week. But that's just because there's I think there's over 40 artists who've already got EOIs in, so we want to try and get some of those people through and get some money out for them for their performances and stuff like that. And I don't think the other thing, just Anne Dunn's also online again today, and we're going to, at the end of this call, just hang on for a few minutes to have a chat about this particular project, the action about trying to connect people in communities who don't have internet access or phone access that they can use to participate in this. So it got raised a couple of times in some of the lunches last week. And so the action now is that there's a group of people who are willing to put some money into helping artists who need data or an internet connection during this kind of epidemic time. And so we're going to use the platform as a way to connect people up through that. So if you're interested in that, or if you think you're able to help out, maybe making connections to people who might need help, can you hang on the Zoom for a little bit at the end, and we'll kind of chat together briefly at that point. So now I just want to pass over to the wonderful Johnny Willsteed, who's long-term friend of ours, also the chair of Feral Arts as a company. So he's been an amazing supporter for our work for many years, and so we're really delighted to have him on today to speak with Luke. So over to you, John.
There we go. That's better. You're far too gracious, Normani. I have no idea what you do. I've never understood it. I just turn up for the meetings every now and then. G'day, I'm John Wilsteed. I'm speaking to you from Stafford, and I'd like to acknowledge the history and the presence and the sovereignty of the Turrbal and Jagera people on whose land I live and work. And also thanks to ArtsFront for the opportunity to be part of this process. You know, these ongoing lunchtime meetings, a couple of which I've sat in on, and they've been, you know, fascinating. And it's great to be able to pull 80 people into a meeting. It would be so hard to do in any other kind of scenario. So regardless of the difficulties that we're presented with in all of the kind of different worlds we live in, this is a great thing that we're able to just chat in the middle of the day every day, in the midst of cooking and you know, listening to the guy mowing the yard and all of the other things that are part of our lives. I'd like to introduce Luke Daniel Peacock, who is sitting in front of some lovely clothes at home there, and he's just going to introduce himself like a self-sourcing pudding. Off you go.
Hello, I'm Luke Peacock. I'm a musician based here on Jagera and Turrbal land in Brisbane. I'm a descendant of the people on Darnley Island, also the Samsat tribe, but I work and am based here in Paddington now. I just moved into Paddington, so
it's classy.
I only just got internet yesterday.
Thank you, Luke. And Luke and I play in a band called Halfway. Hang on, I have to stand up for this bit. There it is. A little bit. Yes, thank you. And Luke and I joined Halfway about the same time, and I think now that I couldn't even say 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even a bit longer. And
You're almost 9.
Yeah, and Halfway have been around for longer than that. They're a band from Rockhampton, and but they've been based in Brisbane for a long time. And so that's my kind of principal musical job, I suppose, is playing. And not that it's a job because there's no money in it, but playing in Halfway is my kind of principal musical activity. I'm at least a generation older than Luke. I'm 63, and I grew up in Brisbane. I've been playing in bands my whole life. I played in bands through the kind of punk and post-punk years. I moved to Sydney, played in the Go-Betweens for a couple of years, and then worked in the film industry for 10 or 15 years, moved back to Brisbane. And now, Halfway is my kind of principal musical focus. So Luke and I both play in Halfway. Luke's got his own kind of musical life outside of the band as well. And it might even be good, Bertie, if you kind of talk to us about what other aspects of your, I suppose, because music's how you make your money, what are the different bits of that make up your kind of working life, I suppose?
Yeah, just sort of, it ranges a lot, to be honest. Not a lot of it comes from revenue from songs and streaming and things. Certainly not enough to, survive. So I tend to branch out and do things without kind of doing anything I don't want to do. One of those things, I work for Digi Youth Arts, which is a youth arts organisation for young people here. And well, it's nationwide technically, but it's based here in Brisbane. And I do mentoring work as a lead artist with a band that is kind of born from DYA called the Ancient Bloods, and just do mentoring and songwriting and producing and stuff like that. Also other things like I'm pretty regularly peer assessing for the Australia Council, which helps, always comes around at a good time when I need the money. What else?
I don't want to put you on the spot. I think one of the things that comes out of the conversation, out of what you've been saying, is that the nature of being a musician almost requires a certain, nimbleness or something, but
Yeah.
never kind of too embedded in any one thing, not to be able to take up opportunities. And to be honest, that is like a mode of working which lends itself to being functional in these times when things are changing really rapidly. You're not totally dependent on live music for your income, live performance for your income, and so
Mm.
it's a dreadful kind of collapse of live music. Isn't going to cripple you. It hasn't. In fact, you've just found a nice place to live. So almost the very opposite.
Well, I found this. I signed this lease a month ago, and probably lost just about all my work about a week after that. So, it still has an impact. Like when you think about, I guess one of the funny things about joining Halfway was that I didn't. I joined as a keyboard player, and I'm not a keyboard player. Never was, but I just said yes because I wanted to be in the band because I loved the band. And then all of a sudden, all these people thought I was a keyboard player, so I was asked to do all these really great shows. And with the live stuff, not so much with like my solo stuff or Halfway or minor premiers who I play in also. We don't make a lot live, but some of those projects like the Buried Country project that I did and the 16 Lovers Lane thing, where it's kind of you are actually getting a little bit of money at the end of the day. Losing that stuff has been things along those lines.
Yeah, they're kind of, it's a bit brutal because they don't happen very often, but they're sort of tidy earners or something like that.
Yeah. Well, for a while there, I was doing a few of them. I was doing the Headland and 16 Lovers Lane and Buried Country. Just doing the festival, Brisbane Festival, Melbourne Festival, all those sorts of things. And when they're all happening, and you kind of making it all work at the same time, you're actually sort of getting by.
Yeah, I think one of the other things too is that something I teach at a university, QUT in Brisbane, and that's my job, like my day job pays the mortgage and stuff. One of the things I'm really aware of at the moment is not being very. I've been aware of it for quite a while, to be honest. There's kind of generational differences between how people approach the notion of music making, audience, a whole bunch of other things, communicating in general. And once again, this has been a really interesting experience, say for me, people of my generation. But I think that for younger people, maybe it hasn't made as much impact. The notion of kind of face-to-face stuff is so, that's where I come from, my parents and me, but young people, they do so much communicating online anyway. This is, it's just they're in their element in a sense. And probably, that once again, there's a lot to be learned from, I think how, I always feel like I'm running behind the pack, you know what I mean? I really like that. I like the fact that at university, we teach certain things, but we're not teaching. We're really just following and watching, what's going on and just kind of herding it so it doesn't go crazy, or people start eating one another or something. This is something I'd like to ask you about, Luke. In the meeting the other day that I was in with Marinda Donnelly and Josh Pether, he was talking about how difficult it is to collaborate online now in this time because there was a level of intimacy and nuance and awareness that happen when you're in a room with a group of people working, and he was talking about fairly subtle movement, in a group of people who are say improvising in a space or whatever, or responding to one another. And that's true of music making as well. When we're in a room together, things happen in the split second, that you can't predict, and all of that stuff. How do you think this, where we're at now, where we might not be able to get into a room and make music together for another 6 months? There's no way of knowing how long this will go on. How do you think that affects how you collaborate with your fellow musicians?
Pretty much exactly how you explained it, I think, John. Working with different bands and doing my own stuff as well, I find that you're completely right. Like, you can still achieve things. I've been lucky enough to kind of been slowly putting together. It's in front of me now, like behind the camera, so you can't see it. But
I'll have a look.
A pretty cool kind of home recording job setup thing. And I've been lucky enough to sort of tinker away at that over the last few years, and actually put together. My last solo single was literally me in my parents' bedroom, and even a song that Leanne might be aware of called Hawaiian Holiday, which is a very recent song by another band of mine called Minor Premiers. And we're very much a band in a room kind of style, but I wrote that song very spontaneously and recorded a demo with all this gear that I'm sitting in front of. And the band were just like, just release it, just put it out.
Yeah.
And no, you would never ever know that it was not the band.
Yeah.
It was just me. So, I mean, there's a way of getting away with it, but in saying that, I feel like it would have been a lot better, a lot more life in the recording, a lot more spontaneity, all the things that come with playing in a band together. That's missing.
Yeah, I think I was going to sort of talk about, or maybe inform people about things that they may not know in relation to kind of music. For more than 30 years, software's been available so that people can collaborate, making music remotely. That's just been part of the deal. And it's through those decades, it's just got cheaper and cheaper. More and more people have access to it. Now everybody virtually has access to some kind of music making software on their laptop or phone or whatever it might be. And even though, I'm the same as you, I've got gear here at home, even though it's easy enough to continue to make something that sounds like it's a bunch of people working together, or even to make something as we are at the moment, with Halfway, where for the last couple of years, our singer's been living in Darwin. And so we have to work, we used to get together twice a week. We can't do that anymore. So we have to work remotely. We send files to one another, we add to them. And you do that, I'm sure, with lots of different people, as I do.
Well, yeah, with Headland, especially the last Headland album that we recorded, which was aptly entitled What Rough Beast, was literally everyone lives in a different city. I was in Brisbane, Murray's in Uralba, sort of northern New South Wales. Joel's in Melbourne. Kenny and Amanda are in Sydney.
Yeah.
And it was just a very long process of I think some people went up to Murray's. Murray came up to my place to do my parts. I think Amanda might have just Dropboxed her parts.
Yep.
And I don't know. It was weird. It was very weird.
Yeah, there's, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It takes longer. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, it does.
True. It spins out the time, but I think that we're in a time now where we've got more time, and so it's not as big a problem. And we miss out on for a while anyway, we miss out on the kind of joy of being together in a room, where something might take 6 months to make. You might only need 3 days to make it if you get everybody in a room together.
No,
but
absolutely.
It doesn't mean it can't be done, though, and it can be done in a really sophisticated way. And I can't imagine how difficult that must be for you know, say theatre performers or dancers or, you know,
Mm.
so I think the point I was trying to make before was that really for musicians, this has been going on for a long time. At least a generation of musicians has been used to working in this way. They
Yeah.
might choose not to work in this way. A huge amount of kind of dance music and stuff is made in this way, and
Mm.
in bedrooms on laptops. So, and that's a giant lump of the industry, of the money in the industry, and the
Yeah. Yeah.
audience and stuff. I'm kind of running out of things to kind of discuss or with you, but maybe we could invite people in now to maybe ask us questions if they want. I can't even read the screen from here, so I've got no idea whether people are sorry, I'm just having a look here. It looks like Leanne has a question. Leanne, do you have a question? I can't even see you, but you're there. You might have to, oh, your mic's unmuted. No, your mic's not unmuted.
Unmute.
There you go.
Hi, thanks. Hi, John. Thanks, Luke. I mean, it's just that I just want to speak openly, but I'm watching this flood of musicians streaming, and there's obviously there's two concerns. One, this sense of artists self-soothing, that they're now in isolation, they need to create, and my heart breaks for them, but jumping on this sort of, you know, broadcasting everything that they're doing. So I wonder what Luke thinks of that, really, and you, John. But also, you know, whereas artists that have nurtured that for so long, and yes, you can make a song and stick it out in 24 hours, but should you? And I've sort of got this holistic concern that we've got a whole lot of artists in sort of psychological pain, self-soothing through streaming. And then, of course, there's what that means with not monetizing or valuing, and we're devaluing music once again at a rate of knots that we've just recovered from.
Yeah, it's got two really great points in it, doesn't it? I'll just speak first, Luke, if that's all right. I've always had a lot of trouble with the internet and the democratization of music. I think there's an awful lot of people who make an awful lot of really shitty music and share it with everyone. And I'm wary about saying that. It's not like I haven't said it before. You know, there's a lot of quantity and the quality suffers, I think, sometimes for that. I really take your point about people for whom maybe performing is really essential, you know, to their musical lives. I'm not one of those people, you know, so I'm happy to sit here and tinker on things and not share that stuff with anybody. It'll just sit there and wait, and at some point it'll slide into, you know, a halfway album or whatever it might be, or something, or another project that I'm working on. But for those people for whom, you know, weekly sitting in a pub playing that, or, you know, nightly, whatever it might be, that this is a really difficult time, and some kind of new model. And I imagine that, I don't know how that works. You know, maybe APRA has some power here in order to kind of look at licensing, and you know, the government has an opportunity to kind of, whatever power they might have with the streaming services, whatever they might be, in order to kind of swing this stuff back towards the artists getting a fairer share. Yeah, this is like what it's been like now, only now it's on steroids or something. That the problem that was there before is even bigger, and it was a huge problem before. So I honestly have no insights into how to fix that. You almost want to say to people, don't share your music unless you're getting paid for it, in a way. It's just like, you know, don't go and play in a pub if they're not going to pay you for it. It's Bertie, Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, it's not something I've thought a lot about. It's not something I have done as yet. I did record something very recently that is going to be going up on a friend's page. But yeah, I was kind of, I didn't want to just do what I might be doing later and just sort of sit in front of the computer and just do something live, just to sort of keep engaged with my audience, sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like, I think me and you, and probably the halfway thing, is we've always sort of been pretty quality first,
Yeah.
above everything else. So in that sense, I think, yeah, you sometimes see stuff and you're like, what are you doing? But I'm not against it at all. Like if it makes people happy, if people feel they're putting something out there, and exactly as Leanne said, you know, they're hurting. It's really sad. But and you know, quality is a thing, but then at the same time, it's like, you know, there's been some really cool ones where John Fogerty and Brian Wilson and Paul Simon have just kind of done, you know, and it's been pretty moving, you know, terrible quality, but kind of pretty wow that, you know, it is a bringing people together kind of thing. That as far as the money thing, yeah, I don't really know the ins and outs of the internet, Facebook, live streaming, Instagram world of making money. Yeah,
Leanne, do you have any insights into that? Because you're, you know, you live in you know, your business is wrapped up in licensing and
it's now in hibernation, and we've stood down 120 people.
Yep.
So those that don't know, so our business is in the background music sector, but we provide licensed and money income streams for recorded music in public places. So everything from pubs, clubs, gyms. So we've just put everything on ice. But it was one of the things I was actually brainstorming with Elliot and a few others, managers, Joe Pratt that manages Emily Warramara and some of the big agents, is how in this new way, potentially where venues are closed and artists could create quality live product in that environment, but it's licensed under different models so that we can actually use our distribution platform to push it out gradually as places start opening. So that I can't see that live music in pubs is coming back real fast.
Yep.
You know, if the pubs can open, they'll have a few people, it'll be really gradual. So how can we start to monetize live performance? So there's some really innovative thinking around managers too, and actually cutting out, dare I say it, a lot of the middle people, you know, that normally haven't had a piece of the live. And really it'll be managers and agents and artists driving what that could look like. So I think there's some interesting conversations going. I also know the electronic music scene globally are much more connected. So I'm on the advisory board for the Electronic Music Conference. I've been working with James Slinger the last few weeks of scanning the world to look at what's working to protect artists when they do something online, they can monetize it. So there's actually a piece of research happening there that might be of interest to arts front people. I can hook that up. But the third thing I wanted to say then is I'm really interested. I'm coming at this now. I'm not a manager anymore. I'm not anything except, you know, a business that now is kind of nothing. So as a fan, and then I think, like, I'm such a fan of Luke. I'm a fan of all these artists, but there's other people that are watching streaming, and where there's an option to donate or give money, they're not doing it. Yeah. So, like, you know, so I'm like, they're used to this YouTube model of just sit and watch stuff, and they're probably only watching 2 minutes of a performance. So how do we get deep engagement and encourage people to chuck in, you know, like in New Orleans, you go in, you chuck some money in the hat. I think that I'm really interested in how audiences, and music, once again, so far ahead of the other art forms, we can get audiences, if you're watching something, to take that next bit and give something.
Are there models for that? Are there models for that where that
I actually watched Frankie Walnut, Keir Nuttall on the Woodford. I don't know if anyone's been watching Woodford Folk Festival. At 6 o'clock every night are having a different artist from the Woodford canon. And it's from 6 till 7 Queensland time, I think. And there's a link, and it's called Chuffed. Don't know if you know it, Elliot. It's a platform, but it's a bit like a busker's hat. So you can go in, and what they're doing then, they're collecting all the money from that week's performance and divided by the number of streams and whatever, and sharing it equally between the artists that Woodford did that. And like 3,700 people watched Keir's Frankie Walnut's thing last night. Fuck, you might get $30, I don't know, but we threw $20 in, $5 each as a family, just to sort of see how it worked. And I think if that idea could take off, like a virtual cover charge or something, So I think the technology's there. I think Chuffed and I think Patron. I'm a big supporter of the Patron model. I don't know if John, if you.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's you know, it's certainly in the people who I patronise. It's
Mm,
it's more about their lives, and then the work that they make from their lives is you know, like a byproduct of the support in a sense, rather than it
mm.
being aimed at particular, you know, this money for this product. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't. What I feel really guilty. I'm a patron of 10 musicians. I give them all $10 a month.
Yep.
Sorry, Luke, close your ears. But I don't listen to my. I don't listen. I don't. You know, I'm not actually. I'm doing it because my heart wants them to put money on the table, and I know that on the 1st of April, today, you know, Chris Endry gets $600
Yep.
from his people, and that'll be his groceries.
Yep.
So how do we get people to think about like old-fashioned Renaissance patronage? It's micro patrons.
yeah, it's the micro renaissance.
Yeah, bring
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And so how do we kind of spread that word and make people realize that it's in a sense it'll be cheaper, because
Mm-hmm.
there'll be a whole lot of stuff out of the middle that's gone, you know, costs and so forth, and it'll go directly to the artist, you know. It's such a great, you know, maybe there's maybe we need to get what's her name, the comedian with the $50 million fundraising. You know, maybe we need to kind of move it over into that area of going.
Mm.
People pull together shitloads of money around those bushfires.
Yeah.
This here,
And it's almost like if you took the old street team model, you know, like back in the 90s where you'd have your super fans that go and do your flyers and shit for free, and you give them a free gig. Excuse my language, parts front. I feel like I'm sitting at home. This is the first one of these I've done. You know, you used to, and you had your super fans and you give them a free ticket to your gig and they'd help spread the word. And I'm like, maybe if we could find the super fans that are willing to think of this micro philanthropy patron stuff, so that we're telling, and it's not about putting the pressure on the arts sector, it's actually audiences.
Yeah.
And in music, we don't have those big institutions that other performing arts do. So it's really going to come to some clever, I think, managers and artists that know their key fans and get back to old school street team value, you know, ways of doing things. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of artists also that are really uncomfortable in asking for patronage. I know I haven't really thought of doing it.
Yep.
And I know like someone like Ben Salter took him a lot of convincing from people to be comfortable with it, you know.
Yep.
And I was one of Ben's first ones. It's been amazing to watch him get more comfortable with it.
Yeah,
You know, and I don't think his patrons have much expectations on him, to be honest. We're just keen to see him keep writing as a songwriter.
Yeah.
Leanne, that's really great. Thank you very much for all of that. I think all of that's really useful, and it requires that we continue to talk about it, you know, and push it into the places where decision making and stuff happens. I was just going to have one little thing that I wanted to bring up. Luke and I have been involved, halfway actually, have been involved in a project with Bob Weatherall called A Restless Dream. And this is this is a music project, a spoken word music project that we're trying to move up into a performance. And so it requires collaboration with choreographers, writers, directors, theatre designers, in order to kind of build a show. And in the past, you know, that would have happened in a room with a bunch of meetings with people throwing ideas around. And so we're about to kind of enter into this process of trying to do this very interdisciplinary collaboration using this method really of talking to one another in this way. And I think it'll be a really interesting process for us, you know, somebody on the other end of the camera showing us some dance moves, you know, in front of a piece of music in order to get feedback. And I think it'll be a really, it'll be an eye opener for us. And I don't know whether it's the sort of thing that people do a lot, but certainly, you know, I'm really keen to see how it kind of plays out over the next few months as we work to develop this show. Does anybody have any other? Does anybody Got anything else to add or say? Normie, would you like to? I'm just trying to read these.
Hey, John. So thank you both, Luke and John,
We've got
for
to pick a song
fantastic
yet.
conversation.
What song to be played?
Yeah.
So, Luke, why don't you grab your guitar? Tell us what you're going to do. I'll mute my microphone because I've been fucking talking forever, and you go for it.
Sorry, Leanne. I was going to do a song. Leanne requested a song that I haven't played it in ages because we haven't played any live shows. So I'm too scared I'm going to screw it up. And also she's not a patron of mine. So all right. So this is called Go Lightly. With every bit of morning condensation, every little shiver, every bump upon my skin, and yours will be the light I lost. Yours will be the face I'd once forgotten. You said when you go lightly. With every pour attempt at the combination, and every little ember, every layer on my skin. Well, you and me were not unlike. We were as unsteady as each other. And you said when you go lightly. Lightly. With every little flaw in my translation, and every time I sing my youth, I sing my youth to you. Yours will be the light I lost. Yours will be the face I'd once forgotten. And you said when you go lightly. 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 Lightly.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, John. That was fantastic. What a beautiful performance, and just one example of a massive amount of stuff that artists are creating in response to the situation that we're all in. There's a fantastic chat here now with some great links and questions and ideas. It feels to us like there's a much bigger conversation around music that we should have a think about, like other people who can come in and present and keep this conversation going, keep sharing those links and provide other resources for the artists involved. Obviously, we're doing through the Little Lunches, providing fees for artists for their presentation and copyright and stuff like that. So that's one model that can kind of that we can encourage organisations and artists who can operate like that to provide support for artists in a direct way. An example of that will be on Friday when we're doing the Little Drinks Online, the first of that. I just didn't realise until now that's a time clash with the session at the Woodford thing. So we'll maybe have a think about that time and see if we can do it so it doesn't clash, or work out a day that they're not doing stuff. But essentially that'll be getting 6 other artists online presenting and performing, and kind of having a bit of a think about what this all means on their end. So again, a huge thank you to John and Luke, and to all the Artsfront team for all the production stuff today, to the captioning team, and to Susan from Auslan, and all of the everyone else who's kind of contributed to getting this to work today. We'll be back online tomorrow with Carolyn Bowditch from Arts Access Victoria, who's hosting the first of a series of conversations about accessibility, and she's got both artists and other kind of presenters and speakers for that lunch tomorrow, and so that'll be really cool. So make sure that you share that with folk. We'll get some information out about the Little Drinks Online as soon as we've been able to kind of lock down the time for that one. And we'll also, just for those people who are interested in this idea of providing a way for artists to connect with people who can support their online costs, their phone costs and data costs and stuff like that, can you guys hang on for a bit? Anne Dunn's going to join us and lead a bit of a conversation about that and what we can do together to get that working. Anne's organised a group of people who are prepared to donate money or support for artists and other community members who don't have the privilege of doing what we're doing at the moment through connecting online. So we need to kind of work out ways to get that kind of support out to communities and people who aren't currently in this conversation. So thank you all very much again for today, and we'll stay online, but if you don't want to join that other second conversation, you guys can leave as you want. But say